Hello everyone, Mr. MC here, and I am really happy to finally present this. This is my adventure in the 2021-2022 FIA Manufacturer Exhibition season, and I was with BMW for this season. And to be a little more specific, for the Group 4 car, I went with the BMW M4, which is a bit of a tricky car to drive, but it can still be a really fast car. But for the Group 3 car, I went with the super memey BMW Z4, which is one of the slowest cars in all of the Group 3 car class. So it'll be a bit of an interesting experience to show you all what happened. And for this video, I'm going to show the first 2 rounds. So let's not waste any more time and get this started. Oh boy, this is going to be a long season. Let's get this started. Alright, so we qualified 16th place in the BMW Z4, which is one of the slowest cars in all of Group 3, so slow that it laps about a second per lap slower than the fastest cars for a lot of these combinations actually. This one, Dragon Trail Seaside, is a really good example about how slow the Z4 is. It's good on tire wear, it's good on grid launches, but it sucks at everything else. And some of you may be asking why I chose this car to begin with. Because memes, and this is an exhibition season, so it doesn't really matter what happens. I'm just here for the fun of it. But anyways, as the race is getting on its way, we need to make sure that we're in the slipstream range to be able to keep up with the cars ahead of us. And here we go, 3, 2, 1, here we go. Already getting wheel spin and having the car slide around a bit. And that little bit of sliding around is already going to make me lose the slipstream. So I am already in no man's land, which is not exactly where I want to be. If I was in the slipstream range, I'd be able to keep up with the Subaru or even catch up a bit to it, so I can keep up with the big group of cars that is just ahead of me. But for now, I'm just gonna run my own race, just do my own thing, hopefully avoid any sort of trouble that can come up during these 15 laps. There's already trouble up ahead, a Ferrari and a Porsche spinning out and going off track. So already not even halfway into the first lap, already went up 2 positions just by staying out of trouble. But before I go on, let's just talk about what's going on in this race. So this was the first round of the 2021-2022 FIA Manufacturers Exhibition season, taking place at Dragon Trail Seaside with the Group 3 cars. And we had the racing soft and medium tires available. Both tires were required, so you did have to make a pit stop to switch over to the tires that you haven't used yet. And since I'm starting towards the back, I started on the slower medium tires so I can eventually switch on over to the faster soft tires about halfway into the race, as the Subaru up ahead unfortunately ends up hitting the chicane of death. And here at Seaside, you need to be really careful when navigating through there. Just one little mistake can make you hit that chicane of death, and it's pretty much going to ruin your entire race. And we have to go through it 15 times, so we have to be really careful about how we navigate through there, especially in a car like the Z4, because this car, it understeers quite a bit, so I need to actually slow down a lot to make sure I don't hit that chicane of death and ruin my own race. And that's pretty much the name of the game in the Z4, just trying to avoid any and all sorts of trouble, because this car is so slow, so any little thing that can slow you down a bit is going to feel even worse in a slow car like the Z4. And yeah, you just want to be really careful about what you do and the things that are going on around you, as unfortunately another car spun out. We've already gotten up about 4 positions in the first 2 laps, and we haven't even done anything crazy. We've just been staying out of trouble, just doing our own race. So if things keep on going like this, then I may even end up in the top 10, which would be amazing for a meme car like the Z4. And actually, one of the other things that you need to really watch out for in this car is if you get into battles with anyone, because once again, if you lose more time through battling it out, you'll feel it even more in this car. So you want to try to avoid that if possible. In my case, I kind of just let the cars pass through, try to take advantage of the deception, as I end up hitting the outside wall of the chicane of death. Lost a bit of speed, but luckily it wasn't a race ender. But going back to what I was saying, if there's a car that wants to pass, for me, I just let them pass because they're most likely in a much faster car, or they're just overall doing much better than I am. So just let them on through, take advantage of the slipstream, get a big tow, and hopefully they can take you to the next group of cars. And you kind of do have to think things in the long term, because these manufacturer races, they can range anywhere from a short 20-minute race to a long 40-minute race. Just going through the chicane of death, just trying to be really careful through there, as the Mazda up ahead looks like he hit the chicane of death, but it wasn't bad enough to where it completely ruined his race. So luckily, we're going to be right in his slipstream range, gonna try to keep up with him. Unfortunately, he is in the Mazda RX Vision, so his car is much better at the high-speed corners, so it's going to put me at a big disadvantage once we go through them, as my car, the Z4, is really bad at high-speed corners. So I'll need to be really close to him before we enter those high-speed corners, namely the high-speed S's, so I don't lose the slipstream too early on. So just going to be trying to do my best to keep up with them. Luckily, in the slipstream, the Z4 can kind of keep up with the cars up ahead. Well, most of them at least. I know there's some that the Z4 just cannot keep up with. I think the Nissan GT-R is one of those cars. Mazda RX Vision, luckily I can keep up with them until we go through these high-speed S's. This is where the Mazda is really good at, and the Z4, it's just crap at. Let's be honest here. It's just really bad at it. Just trying to hang on to that slipstream range, 3/4 of a second, and I'm about 6/10 of a second down. So I need to be really careful through here. Just try to nail this corner down, try to stay in the slipstream range, and hopefully get a bit closer to him as we go through the chicane of death, as technically speaking, this is a high-speed corner. And unfortunately, I just have to slow down so much because Z4, very poor when it comes to high-speed corners, and the Mazda up ahead, really fast at high-speed corners, as I'm barely hanging on to the slipstream range. And I'm just going to try to nail down this corner. Quartz in the Mazda is going to get a better exit, and he's just going to break that slipstream range. There we go. So now I'm in no man's land again. He's just going to leave me behind as we go through this next lap, and well, pretty much not much is going to happen in this next lap. For the majority of this race, I've kind of just been in no man's land where there's nothing really going on around me. I guess that's a blessing in itself, because you don't have to deal with any sort of shenanigans. And if you really want to see how slow the Z4 is compared to a car like the Mazda RX Vision up ahead of me, we'll actually compare it now. So Quartz started this lap about 1.6 seconds ahead of me, and we're just going to quickly go through this lap. So this is lap 6. This is actually going to be Quartz's end lap before he switches over to the racing soft tires. And at the end of lap 6, he's about 2.4 seconds ahead of me, so he gained 0.8 of a second. And yeah, that kind of just proves how slow this car is. But anyways, we're going to skip on over towards the end of lap 7 and switch over from the racing medium to the racing soft tires. Hopefully we'll be able to make any sort of progress. So We do have to wait a while since the pit stops have been longer for quite a while now. I still remember when the pit stops used to be really short. I think you were in and out in like 10 seconds, something like that. Your pit loss will be around 7 seconds, but now it's something like 17 seconds. So I think if the pit stops were shorter, maybe a 2-stop would have worked. I know some people could probably be cheeky and even try a 3-stop, but those days are long over and you pretty much just need to do just one pit stop. And we're going to keep an eye on James Bond USA, so he's about 4 seconds back. If you don't remember, he spun out at the start of lap 2, which we passed him just now, so that was a bit of a flashback. And I just want to point that out, that he has been catching up this entire time, so he's been on quite a bit of a recovery drive. So we're going to see if he's going to be able to catch up to me throughout this race. And the way that he's going in this race, there's a good chance that he may actually catch up to me, and once again it'll show how bad the Z4 is. So nearly done with lap 8. James Bond was 3.7 seconds back. Starting lap 9, James Bond is now 3.3 seconds back, so about half of a lap in, and he already gained about half a second. And then going through the chicane of death in a moment in the middle of lap 9, James Bond now 2.5 seconds behind me, as unfortunately another car hit the chicane of death, so now we're up another position. Once again, just trying to stay out of trouble, and that's kind of been working out for us. But going back to James Bond USA, so he's been catching up to us really fast, and he's in the Toyota FT1, which is actually one of the better cars for this track, Dragon Trail Seaside. And the FT1 is also really good when it comes to high-speed corners, which is where he's going to be gaining so much time on us. And well, starting lap 11, he is already behind us, and he's well within the slipstream range, and there's nothing that I can really do. I could try to defend, but that's kind of going to be a death sentence for me. So the best option for me is to let him on by and just try to be under his slipstream for as long as I can. Try to get the tow. My car will go a little bit faster, and hopefully we'll be able to catch up to whoever is ahead of us. So gonna purposely go wide into the uphill hairpin. Just let him on by, just try to lose as little time as possible. Just tuck into a slipstream. But here's the thing, the FT1 is superb when it comes to high-speed corners. You can just see how much faster the FT1 is on those high-speed corners versus the Z4, where the Z4 it just understeers all day on those high-speed corners. So now I'm desperately just trying to stay under his slipstream, and it's gonna be really difficult to do so. He's already 0.6 of a second up. It's gonna try to get as close to him as possible before we go through the chicane of death, but unfortunately I have to slow down so much that James Bond, he's just gonna fly away, and I'm gonna once again be in no man's land because he broke the slipstream from me. And we'll actually skip on over towards the start of lap 13, so this is about a lap later. So we're still kind of far back from James Bond, as he's going off track for some reason, going all the way to the left, just taking the weirdest line possible. Not sure what's going on, as he's gonna end up hitting the barrier where the apex is. And what actually happened was, unfortunately, he disconnected. So that's gonna be one more position up for me, and kind of feel bad for James Bond, as he just had a really rough race, getting spun out and then just getting disconnected after what was seeming to be like a really good recovery drive. But that's going to be pretty much it for this race. Nothing else really going on. It's been a bit of a quiet race for me in the Z4, and I guess you could say that's a pretty good thing, because I've avoided a lot of the trouble. Went up 5 positions, going up to 11th place, just shy of 10th place or top 10. But I'll take it. Much better than finishing in last place. And I was just kind of surprised that I didn't finish much further down in this meme car. But that's going to be it for this first round. Now let's go over to the second round and see what happened. Alright, welcome to the second round of the Manufacturer Series, and this was Group 4 cars over at Suzuka Circuit, and this was a bit of a brutal one as this was a nearly 40-minute race, so you needed a bunch of concentration and you needed a bunch of practice, which is what I barely did because I only spent like 5 minutes practicing for this race, only on time trial, because I decided to do this race last second. So we're going to go on over to the qualifying session and 5-minute qualifying session. So you only had a few chances to try to get a really good lap time. And for this one, what I decided to do was just try to qualify by myself. Slipstream is pretty useful for a lot of these qualifying sessions. Lets you go a bit faster and shave off a bit of time, but because I've done barely any practice, I decided that it'd be a bit better if I just went by myself and just try to do as best as I can, because I was kind of just here to just mess around, have a bit of fun. So going over towards the start of the first qualifying lap, just bring myself all the way to the left, give myself a bit more space to build up a bit more speed. And as you can see, there's no one behind me, no one in front of me, so I don't really have to worry about anyone around me. So I'm just gonna try to be really careful through this first turn. Really easy to mess it up, touch the AstroTurf, and then just have your qualifying lap ruined. But luckily so far everything's been going pretty well as we approach the end of the first qualifying lap, getting a bit close to the car in front, but they're not close enough to where I have to worry about them. So I'm still just gonna go my usual way, just try to go as fast as I can, bring myself all the way to the right to close up the distance and get at 205.8, so provisional pole position. But we're gonna just do another lap, try to see if we can do a little better and maybe improve our qualifying time, and that'll also give other drivers a chance to improve on their qualifying times as well. But here at the end of the second qualifying lap, gonna be a 10th up, get provisional pole position, but I'm gonna get beat out by Turismo Lester, who is gonna be a 10th faster than me. Somehow qualifies second place, so I'm not gonna complain about that. So far things are looking pretty good. But the problem is that I only spent a bit of time on the time trial mode and not on the race pace, so I'm pretty unfamiliar with how the car handles under the race conditions, so it's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride. But anyways, 18 laps at Suzuka Circuit. This is a nearly 40-minute race, lots of concentration needed. All 3 tire compounds were available, but only the racing medium and hard tires were required. So the way that things went, you'd use the soft tires for qualifying, and then you'd use the racing medium and hard tires for the race, as pit loss is about a quintillion years. But anyways, just go through the first turn, just trying to be a little careful to here as I'm trying to get used to how the car handles under race conditions as fast as I can. Luckily I do have lesser slipstream, so things are looking good for now, but it's only going to be good for so long because it's eventually going to become very clear that I spent 0 time practicing for the race, and that's when those around me are just gonna take advantage of me. But in the meantime, Lester, Tim Lauer, and I have already broken away from the pack behind us, so 4th place is already out of Tim Lauer's slipstream. So we're going to kind of just enjoy our drive for now, not really do anything silly just yet, not get into any sort of shenanigans. We're just gonna do our own thing, just run our own race, so we can try to build up a big gap, so hopefully 4th place and below don't end up catching up to us. And we're gonna skip on over towards the start, or just after the start of lap 2. Unfortunately, my lack of practice is going to start to show here, as Lester is just going to get a really great exit out of the S's, and I'm just going to be going so slow that Tim Lauer is probably going to be like, okay, what's going on with this guy? Why is he holding me up? Yeah, I just didn't practice for this race enough, especially when it comes to race pace. So it's starting to really show, and I can already feel a bit of that pressure from Tim Lauer. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to let him on by, because I don't think it's right for me to fight it out with him when he's obviously been practicing for this race and I barely practice, and I just don't want to hold him up, and I want to try to make sure that Lester's not getting too far away. We're already out of the slipstream range, but because Tim Lauer and I, we can work together a bit with a bit of bump drafting, it is still possible to catch up to Lester and get back into his slipstream range. And I think Tim is just barely out of the slipstream range. I'm going to see if I can try to give him a bit of a bump draft as my wipers on for no good reason. Just going to try to pull a bit closer to him. Just going to try to see if I can give him a bit of a bump draft. Just give him just a tiny bump draft. Just trying to get him a bit closer to Lester, because if we can get into his slipstream, then we can kind of just wait around until, you know, maybe later in the race before we can start to attack each other and try to take each other's positions. But skipping over towards partially into lap 5, nothing's really been going on. I've just been trying to stay under Tim's slipstream. Tim's been trying to catch up to Lester's slipstream so we can all be in a slipstream train again. And with the tower slowly starting to kick in, it is starting to feel a little harder for me to try to keep up with Tim. And especially with that lack of practice, it's going to be a little harder, especially with the tire wear kicking in. And I think at this point, Tim is now under Lester's slipstream, which is going to be great for us because now Lester is going to have a much harder time trying to get away from the both of us. But for me, I just need to make sure that I am nailing down every single turn so I can stay under the slipstream, as I'm kind of starting to fall behind. So actually at this point I just lost the slipstream range, so now I'm going to be in no man's land. I'm going to need to try to push a little harder to get back into the slipstream range, but because Tim and Lester have practiced a heck of a lot more than I have for this race, it's going to really show, and I'm just going to get left behind. So for now, I'm just going to just do my own drive. So far, I have podium or provisional podium, so things are looking pretty good as long as I don't mess up and just take it easy on these next 30 minutes of racing, as this is a very long race. Then things should be fine, as I completely mess up the final chicane, almost get into the slipstream of Tim Lauer, but because Tim somehow got a better exit than I did, I'm still not going to be in the slipstream range. Rather, I'm just going to be just out of it. But for the most part, nothing's really been going on. Just been enjoying my drive, being slower than usual because I haven't practiced for this race. But at the end of lap 10, Tim and Lester are about 2.5 seconds ahead of me, but Z28 has been slowly catching up to me, which means that I may have to end up dealing with them sooner or later. But first, I need to go to the pit stops because we're 10 laps in and the racing medium tires, they're pretty much worn out. So we're going to go to the pit stops, switch over to the racing hard tires, as only the racing medium and hard tires are required. So as I mentioned earlier, you only use the soft tires for the qualifying session. And for those who don't know, Z28 is also another content creator who focuses on Gran Turismo Sport. Please check him out because he was actually one of the first Gran Turismo YouTubers that I started watching back when GTSport first came out. That's where I learned some of the tips on getting better in this game. So I do own one because he helped me get faster. So please check out his channel in the description down below. But anyways, first, second, and third place obviously haven't pitted yet, so they're going to be much further up ahead. But once they do pit, they'll be much closer to me. And with these racing car tires, it feels like I'm a little worse because things are not necessarily feeling right. I mean, it is the racing hard tires, of course, but especially with the lack of practice, things aren't really feeling right for me. And I do have to be a little more careful with the M4 coming out of the slower speed corners like the hairpin, as this car does like to generate a bit of wheel spin coming out of slower speed corners. So I do need to be a little careful so I make sure I don't spin out. So just going through the hairpin, just try to take it nice and easy, completely missed the apex and just trying to get a clean exit so I don't have to worry about spinning out. But we're going to skip on over towards the start of lap 12 as Z and Lester have come out of the pit stops, just barely passing Z, and that's going to make me a little worried because once again, I'm not doing too well in this race. My pace is slower than usual, which means that Z's going to have to deal with me, and with me not being at my best, I think it's going to be a bit of a better idea to do what I did with Tim earlier in the race and just let him on by, take advantage of the slipstream, and see if we can catch up to Lester, as Lester is not too far up ahead. And Tim actually still hasn't pitted yet, which is why he's around 24 seconds ahead of pretty much all of us. And we're going to skip on over towards the end of lap 12, and I just want to highlight how much Z gains on me throughout the final chicane and then going on to the main straight. And right now Z is about half a second behind, but he's just going to get a fantastic exit and he's going to quickly gain on me as we enter the main straight and start the next lap. And he's taking advantage of the slipstream, as that's going to let him go even faster and close the gap even more. And if you didn't see what car he is in, he is also in the BMW M4. So now he's right behind me, so now I have to worry about him. And once again, with me just not doing too well in this race, so I'm gonna need to just let him on by and take advantage of the slipstream so we can kind of work together to catch up to second place, who is still not too far ahead of us. However, we have all these twisty turns coming out of the SS and the Dagners coming up ahead, so it's going to be really difficult to kind of just let him on by. So he's going to need to just hang back in there until we exit the hairpin before I just let him on by. And personally for me, I try not to get into any unnecessary battles, and this kind of feels like one of them where getting into a battle is going to be really unnecessary, especially with second place being not too far from us. So the best I can do is just let him on by, and I can obviously see that he's been catching up to me, so his pace is obviously better than mine. So let him on by, take advantage of the slipstream as he keeps on going fast, and hopefully we'll be able to catch up to second place. So Z just passed me and we didn't lose any time from that. So I'm just going to be sitting back in his slipstream. Personally for me, I don't mind getting a fourth place, especially after somehow just qualifying high up there without doing much practice. So I'll take a fourth place. I'll be more than happy with this position or this result after a very long 40-minute race, as Z's unfortunately going to spin out, touch the AstroTurf that's just outside of that turn. So now I'm back up to third place, but I do kind of have to worry about Grove Street Racing, as he is another fast player, so chances are that he may catch up to me kind of like in the same way that Z did, where he slowly caught up to me over time and eventually he was on my rear bumper, which is unfortunately going to happen as we enter lap 15. Grove Street Racing is right behind me now, and the reason why he caught up to me so fast is because he actually is on the racing medium tires. So he started on the racing hard tires, pitted pretty early on, and he's been making those racing medium tires last a heck of a lot longer. So the racing medium tires here at Suzuka, they tend to be around 1 second per lap faster than the racing hard tires, so you can kind of see how he was able to catch up to me so quickly. So now I have to try to defend for 3.5, 4 laps, which is going to be really difficult because once again, I am not doing too well. My pace is kind of just off. Grove Street's on fire, and he's on the racing medium tires while I'm on the racing hard tires. So I'm at a pretty big disadvantage, and now he's gonna try to go for the attack, so I'm gonna try to cover it. Just gonna go for the defensive position and just gonna try to take care of the apex. So far things looking good on my end, but Grove Street's gonna get a slightly better run as he has the softer racing medium tires. Gonna try to cover it up on the inside again as we're going side to side into the spoon corners, and Grove Street is going to get the pass done from the outside. He's able to make the pass stick, not end up binning it because it's really easy to bin it on the spoon corners. And now I have to try to find a way to stay with Grove Street, as once again he's on the medium tires. Try to stay with him and hope that his racing medium tires start to wear out so I can try to take advantage of him. But for now, I'm not going to do much. I'm just going to try to stay in this slipstream and skipping over towards the end of lap 16. This is where I need to start to think about what I want to do to try to get past him. At this point, it's starting to look like his racing medium tires are starting to show signs of wear, so it's going to be a bit easier for me to keep up with him, and if he makes any errors, then it should be a bit easier for me to get closer to him and potentially set up for a pass. So just going to go through the first two corners, just take it nice and easy. The S's pretty much very difficult to nearly impossible to get a pass done, so just going to try and see if I can get any closer to him. Just trying to keep it really nice and tidy through here. There is a bit of tire wear on my racing hard tires, but they should still be better than Grove's worn racing medium tires. So his pace should be a bit closer to my current pace, which means that I'm going to have an easier time keeping up with him. But once again, with his worn racing medium tires, he does need to be a bit more careful about how he's driving his Ferrari. And kind of the same applies to me, because racing hard tires and BMW M4, they're not necessarily the best combination, but yeah, you just need to be a little careful as my car just started to step out a bit. Now we're going through the back straight leading to the spoon corners, going to try to see if I can get a bit closer to set up for a move, but I'm just too far back, 0.3 of a second back, so I need to get closer to him to try to get a pass done, and it's going to be really difficult to do so. I need to get a really good exit, as I'm not getting good exits through the spoon corners. But now with this longer back straight, hopefully I can get just a little bit closer to see if I can go for a pass or an attempt for a pass at the final chicane. So here we go, going through 130R. I have to brake a little bit because of the dirty air, just trying not to touch the AstroTurf, just trying to be really careful through here, as Lester is pitting again for some unknown reason, and I'm going to end up cutting the corner, and I'm going to end up getting a 1.5 second track limit penalty. So all that momentum, all that intensity was for nothing, and unfortunately I'm not going to be able to battle it out with Grove Street for second place, as now I have a pretty big penalty to serve. As for Lester, he unfortunately ended up double dipping on the medium tires, so he did 2 stints on the medium tires when he was actually just trying to do a stint on the medium tires and then a stint on the hard tires. So in this case, he did medium tires for his first stint, medium tires for the second stint, and then racing hard tires for the third stint. And that mistake at the pit stop cost him quite a bit of time, as he was doing pretty well in a comfortable second place, but now he has fallen back to 4th place, 10 seconds behind me, and unfortunately he is out of podium. And it really sucks for me because at this point I'm really close to Grove. I possibly could have gone for a last lap move, but because I have the penalties to serve, all that battling was pretty much for nothing. Really sucked because I could have finished with a second place position, but that 1.5 second penalty from that little corner cut at the final chicane, it just ruined all that momentum. But either way, finishing 3rd place after barely any practice and surviving nearly 40 minutes of this long race and kind of just trying to keep things tidy, and I'm pretty happy with that. There we go, celebrating 3rd place, celebrating podium. Luckily my mistakes were not big enough to be a race ruiner. I think that's the right way to put it. So yeah, I was pretty happy with this. And that is pretty much going to be the end of this long video. As what is he doing on the top right? What is he doing? Please stop. Stop. No. What? Oh my god. Stop. There we go. Anyways, thank you guys for watching this long video as I try to cover both round 1 and 2 of the manufacturer series. Lots of shenanigans. Luckily, I was able to pretty much avoid them all and get good results. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys for the support. Thank you to Playseat for supporting the channel as well. This is Mr. MCA, the world's most okay player, and I'll see you in the next video.